Well, hello and welcome to episode 5 of QasarBeach Alias Exploration. I'm your host, Michael Glanton, and we have a great episode for you this time. We're going to get into version 0.15 that was just released by QasarBeach over this last weekend. Now, this version brings 4 major updates and a host of other little tweaks that will improve your workflow and give you a much greater level of control when doing sound design. First off, we've made a change to how you get to the various different pages from the keyboard. Instead of using the P as a modifier, we're going to use the Option or Alt key, which is available on both sides of the keyboard. So you'll use the Option key plus the same numbers or letters that you were using before to get to the different pages. So we'll take a quick review of that. Then we're going to get into the newly added envelopes. Now, these envelopes really go a bit beyond what your standard ADSR type envelope can do, and they give you a lot more control. So we'll show you how that works. Then we're going to get into the updates to the ASYN Engine. Now, previously, the ASYN Engine only had 16 harmonics to work with. We've taken that from 16 up to 24, which gives you a wider range of harmonics to work with. And then we've added 32 frames that you can use to set different harmonic settings, and then you can page through the frames using the envelopes, LFOs, step sequencers, or functions. And then we'll round things off by taking a look at the new FM synthesis engine. It gives you 4 operators, 3 of which can function as either an operator or a modulator. And the 4th operator even gives you a feedback loop for really wild modulations. It has 11 algorithms and so many things that can be modulated with envelopes, LFOs, step sequencers, and so on. So sit back and enjoy the episode. So let's take a look at the updates to the keyboard. As you recall, in previous versions of Alias as well as QasarBeach 2Z, the modifier key to get to the different pages is the P key. And what we've done here is we took into consideration how the original Fairlight keyboard was set up, where everything is based off of the escape key to get to different functions that, or get to the different pages by hitting escape plus a function key. For example, if you wanted to go to the sampler, you would hit escape F6, then you would create your sample and then hit escape F5 to go to the wave editor and edit your waves down. And then once you're in any given screen, whether it's the wave editor or the rhythm sequencer, whatever it is, then you have the control key and the shift key that act as modifiers to the menu at the bottom of the screen to get you to different functions. And the idea here is that you use your left hand to hit the escape key or one of these modifier keys, and then your right hand to hit the function key. So it's real quick and easy. On the QasarBeach 2Z and Alias keyboard, having to center everything around this P key to get to the different functions is a little bit tricky, especially when when you're looking at your keyboard and you have to hit, P and then something else, you wind up having to take your hand off of the music keyboard. Whereas if we use the Option key as our modifier to get to the different pages, you have the Option key on both sides of the keyboard. You can use your left hand or your right hand, and in most cases you can use a single hand to get to any one of these keys, so you don't have to take your other hand off of the music keyboard. And then of course the Shift key is still the same modifier. So if we were to take a look at this in action, as you can see here, I've got my left hand on the keyboard, and just using the Option key, I can go to, for example, the effects control page. I can get back to the instrument page where we can play multiple notes at one time. And see how I'm able to jump over either left hand or right hand side of the keyboard here to get to those. So I can get to the polyphonic mode here, or I can just jump right on back to the the effects control page and still keep my right hand on the keyboard here. So that's really incredibly powerful. All of the numbers that you would use to trigger that. So for example, when I hold that option key down, all the numbers have stayed the same, right? So, you know, instead of P1, you would hit option 1 and that takes you to the menu. Option 2 takes you to the file page. You know, option 7 brings you back to the effects control where you can make changes to the instrument. Of course, in this mode, everything is monophonic. To this page. See how easy it is? I don't have to take my hand off here. So this is a really major change, I feel like, and I think it's going to speed up the workflow as you're working with Alias. So I hope you like that feature. Next thing that we're going to cover is the envelopes. So first off, the envelopes in the new Alias are a little bit different than your standard ADSR envelope in that there are some additional parameters and some different parameters than you would find in your standard envelope. So in order to demonstrate this, I'm on the ASYN, and as you can see, it's just we don't have any kind of release on the end of it. And what I want to do is I'm going to use an envelope to control the volume instead of using the attack and damper. So in order to do this, though, I want to set my damper all the way up to 127 so that it gives us a really long release on there. And then we're going to patch our volume into this envelope 1. Envelope 1, and when I play it, you'll see that there's a vertical line that indicates time, and then once you release the note, then that's marked here, and this will become relevant in a second. Now, normally when you're in the envelopes, the default zoom level is 100. I recommend setting this down a little bit when you're first working on these so that you'll be able to visualize a little bit more of what's happening. First, let's talk about what this envelope is. I mentioned to you that it's a little bit different than your standard ADSR in that this one is what we call a DADRSR. And what that stands for is delay, attack, decay, ramp, slope, and then release. Now you notice there's not a sustain in there, and we'll cover that here in just a second. So the first thing let's do is let me play with the release, and the first thing I'll tell you about this is that it goes both up and down, right? So I could create something that actually gets louder over time, or if I'm modulating something, like a filter, instead of having the filter, go down at the end, go up. I'll demonstrate all this in a little bit. But let's start off with just doing something like this, where we've got a pretty short release. And to see what happens, it's really indicating what's happening in the envelope and then tracking the release. So let's change a few more parameters and see how this is going to affect that. Now on the attack, you actually have two controls here. There's the attack level and then the attack time. So you can control to what level the attack is going to arise and how long it's going to take to get there. Alright, so let's bring the decay down. We'll take the attack level and push it all. Let's push it all the way up to the top and set a little bit of time there. So you have a decay level and also a decay time. And so now this is starting to look a bit like a standard ADSR envelope. Right? So all straightforward so far. Now the additional parameters that we have are ramp and ramp time. I'm going to go ahead and increase the time a little bit and then watch what happens. See how I have this ramp, so I can have the decay go down quite a bit. Let's Maybe bring the attack a little bit shorter, the K time a little shorter. Let's bring that ramp up some. Right, great. Now there's one more control here. So right now, as you can see, this is now acting like a sustain level. But there's one more control you have that is really super cool. Is the slope. And this is kind of like, I guess you would call it the slope of the sustain, which is an interesting way of thinking about it. So we could actually have this slope down. We'll bring the ramp up even more, and then watch what happens. And it'll go outside the window and just keep going. Let's pull our zoom out so we can see a much longer, yeah, so you can see that slope. If you just hold that note out forever, it'll eventually go all the way down to 0. So let's watch that. As you can see, the release is following it. You hear it getting quieter, and then I can release. Let's take a look at this on the actual volume control here. Right? Pretty powerful. Okay, so that's a bit about the envelopes. You have 4 of them, and you can use them to modulate all kinds of stuff, just like you can your functions, LFOs, and step sequencers. Let's get into the additive synthesizer, the updates here. Now, the first really big update is the addition of frames here. And you'll notice as I move the slider here, that frame 0 has a this first harmonic is set to 127. If I go up 1 frame, then it's a blank frame. Now, anything that I do in a frame, I can copy and paste into another frame. So that's going to be on the shift menu. And so on this frame, if I just hit 3, right, so shift 3, that's going to copy, and then shift 4 will paste. And what I can do now is hover over this the frame slider. I've already copied the first frame, frame 0, and if I go up 1 frame and then hit 4 on my keyboard, it'll paste it. Okay, and I could do this for all of my frames and then make a number of changes. So here I have 4 frames that are set exactly the same, and let's go make a couple different changes in them and try a couple things. So let's say in the second frame, we'll add a harmonic. Third frame, add an additional harmonic. And then on the 4th frame, we'll do something like that. And then let's patch this over to the step sequencer. It helps if you click on the right thing. Bam! Okay, so now we're on a step sequencer. We'll go to step sequencer 1. And the thing that's really important here is that you can exceed the range of the number of frames, and then it'll just go to the last frame and you do that. So it's probably the best thing here would be to actually type in the numbers. And so let's say I make this go to 3, and then 1, and then 2. We'll set our number of steps, set the range here to be 4. Okay, and then let's play that. Pretty straightforward. And then you have this speed, which will smooth out the morphing from one frame to the next. And you can set that to where it is smoother than the changes that are happening. So as you can start to see how you're able to really, create these evolving sounds, and you have a lot of control over it. Now let's do something a little more interesting and take advantage of that envelope. So if I hit escape, that'll bring me back to the effects control page. And let's, first of all, we're going to unpatch the frames, and let's go ahead and get that frame 0 again, and we'll copy that. So I'm going to hit, or actually I'm already on my shift menu, so I'm going to hit 3. And then what I want to do is I want to just fill all the rest of the frames with this same thing, and then start making some changes over time. So let's go up and paste. Almost there. And bam, done. Now, the next thing I want to do is I'm going to go to my first frame, and I'm going to make a change here. Actually, I'll copy that, and then we'll go to the next frame and paste it. And I'm going to go up a little bit. So let's do this. I'm going to do copy and then paste. And we'll go up a little bit more. Copy. Paste. And now what we'll do is we'll bring this down here. You'll see where I'm going with this in a moment. That. Copy this, and we'll paste it. So, and actually, if I keep track of which harmonics I'm on, so my next one's going to be 5. Skip 2. And then 6. And skip 2. And then we're just going to repeat this all the way out to the end. Alright, so there we are at the top. And that takes 24 frames to do that whole sequence. just what I'm going to do is then copy this last frame here and then paste that on the remaining frames. Just so as we're doing our envelopes, it'll basically go and stick at the top there like that. See? Now, let's see what that sounds like when we patch it into an envelope. And this will be a good one to try. Now, what's going to happen is it's going to go well beyond. It's going to go right up to the top. See? And it happens so fast you can't even really hear it. So we need to kind of control this a little bit. And so the better way to do this is actually to patch this through a function. And then in the function, we'll use the input here over to the envelope. And then here's the neat little trick on your tracking. Just set that to 32. I say that. We're probably going to have to bring the clamp down some. Start to hear it sounds a little bit like a filter, and actually that is not what I wanted to do. Let's fix that real quick. We could even use we could even flatten this out some. Add a little bit of enhancing and boosting to this. Now if I go over to my envelope and increase my attack time, it's starting to really sound the way I want it to. And so if I bring this here, and let's push that release out a little bit. Very cool. Now, 7. We can try this with different waveforms, and just for fun, let's patch this into the modulation wheel so that we can modulate that and try different waveforms. Mostly the best. There's some others. It also depends upon how many harmonics you set in your frames, and the level that you set them to. I could make that a little bit more pronounced by going through the frames and increasing each of those levels. In fact, let's do that. It'll sound better. Let's see here. Let's just go through each one of these, and we're going to bump it up a little bit, especially those in frames. reason why I unpatch this, let's see if it does this. I'll patch it back into the function. Okay. Let's put this back on the sine wave here. Oh, it helps if you unpatch that as well. There we go. Very, very cool. So, as we go through here, I think what happens when I click in here, yeah, see, it jumps back to that very first frame. So the best thing to do is just temporarily unpatch it. And of course, we're going to want to set this back down. That's a little bit of a problem there. I'll leave the rest of those as they are, because I know it gets pretty hot up there in those upper frequencies. And let's try this now. Do is have it come down to a better point that's not quite so annoying. Pretty neat, huh? Very cool. So yeah, and then here's something else that's even more interesting, is all of these controls in your DADRSR can be patched as well. So watch what happens when we patch this decay into an LFO. And to make this for effect, I'll use a square wave, tighten this up a little bit, give it some speed, and then let's hop back over and watch this envelope. This is going to blow your mind. How fun is that, right? So yeah, a lot of really cool things that you can do there with the envelopes, with the additive synthesizer. I mean, I've even done stuff. Let's try something else here. Let's patch the spread into a different envelope. And let's have the decay all the way down here. A bit of decay time. No, actually, let's try something different here. Let's do this. Let's put the decay back up. Let's bring the attack level down. And we actually want to have the decay level match the attack level here. And I think what we really want here is probably a spread of something like, let's go look at it real quick and see what our spread is. Looks like the spread is 17. So we'll go to envelope 2. Let's set this attack level. Let's just make it 16. How about that, huh? 16. Wrong one. 16. And then let's add some decay. Watch this. This is going to be fun. Go back over here to the LFO. back to the LFO again. Let's go to our first envelope and speed up that decay and the attack, so that we'll get to this sustain level before that LFO, before the spread engages. Right? Super powerful. Okay. And of course, this always sounds good whenever you put in effects. So let's wet it up a little bit. Okay, so you'll notice, so once that starts modulating, and then I release the note, it stops modulating. If I wanted it to continue modulating as the release was happening, then instead of modulating the decay level, and let's make sure we're on the so here we're modulating the decay level using LFO1. We could actually pop back over to our function and then modulate the clamp. Continues to modulate. Let's actually increase the decay level slightly, and then come back over and look at that function again. Right? Very flexible. As I mentioned, the release can go in either direction. So why don't we try, let's use our zoom, and let's push that release into the positive. That is so awesome. I am absolutely loving that. I'm gonna save this one. And let's call it I'm just going to call that sweeper mod. Now here's if I wanted to save this, the quickest way to do that, I start to remember these number combinations. So the quickest way to save it is to type 1, 2, 3 on your keyboard. So 1 takes you to the home menu, 2 takes you to file save, 3 or to the file menu, then 3 gets you into save mode, 1 puts you here where you can get to your favorites. So 1, 2, 3, 1 favorites, and then you can start to drill into your directories. Oops. And then here, if this is blank right here, and you have your voice patch selected up here, if you simply click on .vc2, it'll fill in that for you. And then you can hit E on your keyboard or click the icon over here to save. Okay. Let's go to this mode. Sounds amazing. Okay, let's now hop over. Let's create a new instrument. So to do that, I'm going to go back to the voice edit page, and then we'll just create a new one, which is 6 on your keyboard. And then I'm going to change the voice here to a new blank voice. And let's give it some polyphony. We'll give it 4 notes. Let's give it 6. Why not? Alright, let's hop over and look at the FM synthesis engine. Well, first of all, okay, you have the 4 operators. The first operator is always an operator, so you only have wave, volume, and pan control there. And of course, the waves can be any of the waveforms that are in the default wavetable. Okay. And then the second and third operators are identical in that you have a wave, volume, tuning, and pan. And then the fourth operator is like operators 2 and 3, but you also have a feedback control here. So 4 operators, and then you have, I believe there are 12. Okay, there's 12 different algorithms, and let's just kind of step through those here real quick. So the first algorithm is 4 operators. Nothing really crazy. Obviously, you can set them to different waveforms. You can dial up the feedback on operator 4. And let's just do that real quick. In fact, I'll tell you what. We'll patch the feedback over here to the mod wheel. And we'll just see. Let's go ahead and get this guy back on 34. Now, let's take, let's try the first algorithm. And just to demonstrate, we'll bring the volume of the third and fourth operator down. So we're just dealing with one operator and one modulator. And I think what I'll do here, let's take the pitch, the tuning, as it were, of operator 2 and plug that into the mod wheel. I love it. What if we patch it into that envelope? Now this is a new patch, so I get a new set of envelopes to work with. And let's give it some attack time. Bring that level down to here. Let's get our decay below there. And let's just see what that sounds like. Give it a little bit of release. Now, I almost always like to run my envelopes through a function, and one of the reasons why is, as you can see with the release here, I've just dropped it down by one value. And that may be faster than we want it. So we can run it through a function. We can run it through a function and slow it down. So what we'll do then is we will patch the tuning into function 1. And then the input of function 1 to our envelope. As you can see, there's no real change there. The other thing I can do is I can use a shallower slope in my function. Let's put the tracking out there a ways. And then if we crush this function a little bit, flatten it out, like so. So we've managed to slow down the release quite a bit there. Let's get that tracking up even more. Today. And then of course we can do the same thing again, where we can take this clamp, run it through an LFO, let's speed that up. You know me, I love running this through effects. Let's put some reverb on it. very FM synthesizer-like. Let's bring up the other oscillators here. Nice. And let's see what happens if we throw some feedback in there. Let's run that into a function. And we'll use for the input the key number. How about that? Okay. And then obviously we can do stuff like play with the waves and just try some things here. This is fun. We can run, let's run this into another oscillator here. And so on our oscillators, we have all the standard, sine wave, two sine, saw, triangle, square, and hypersaw. And one of the things that's really kind of interesting is to use the hold function. So you can get sort of a sample and hold type of effect. It's always fun. But then the other thing is instead of using these, you can actually use a waveform here. Say like 6, for example. fun. How about, let's give this a name. Save this out. Now one thing you can do is you can just hit escape on your keyboard and type VPN, comma, and then give it a name. Bam! Lab Glitcher. I don't know where these names come from. Okay, let's have a little bit more fun with the FM synthesis. What we're going to want to do now is Option W, and I'll hit 6 to create a new one, and what's that, W? It's going to be E. There we are. So now we're on a new voice patch, and let's increase the polyphony and see if we can't create something a little more musical this time. Try some of these other algorithms out. Okay. Let's just page through them and see what happens. Kind of want to sample that one. Yeah. I wonder. What if we patch pitch bend into a step sequencer? That's the fast way of creating a bunch of crazy notes. Fun stuff. Okay, let's get back to okay. is always fun, is to take the algorithm and run that into a step sequencer. Of course, the thing to remember again is that your range of values are 0 to 11. So when you do your step sequencer, then you have to make sure that you're within that range, or you can run the step sequencer through a function so that the function will limit the range. So, for example, this step sequencer that I created, step sequence 1, you can see that the range of values here are, you know, from these low, you know, 4s all the way up into the hundreds, right? So we'd want to squash that down by running it through a function, and then patch the function or the kind through this function. So we'll go into function 1 and then run the input from the step sequencer, and then I think we can do it with the tracking, maybe. Let's put that down to actually, let's try 12 and see what that does. See the range. Oh, let's try this also. Let's use a shallower synth. There you go. Keeps it right within that range. Even though the values are, you know, covering a much wider range. And maybe, so what we got going on here. Let's run some of the tuning through there as well. And just so we can really hear the effect, we'll put the panning of our two operators left and right. All right. Let's run this one. Let's actually run the tuning of the modulator. Sounds familiar. Oh, what do we got going on here? What else can we do to this? It's the cat. The cat monster. Oh my goodness. Let's turn this one down. It's the Cat-Screacher. What am I doing? VPN. VPN. Cat-Screacher. Keep one hand on the keyboard, one hand on this other, on the typing keyboard, one hand on the music keyboard. Nope, not that envelope. Let's go to envelope 3. Well, that's going to wrap it up for this episode. I really hope that you like what I've showed you, and I hope you're excited to play with this new version. Please be sure to like and comment below to let me know what you'd like to see in future episodes, and please go to the itch.io website for QasarBeach and make a donation to the developer so that we can continue to see further improvements to this fantastic retro sound design tool. It's totally amazing. I'm loving it, and I hope you love it too. So thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.